Hi, Tile from Infidelity here. Today we're going to talk about a very unusual headset, neckwear, neck speaker, personal speaker, shoulder blaster. I don't know what to call it exactly. This is the Bose SoundWear companion personal speaker system. This is a $299 personal speaker. If anybody has any idea what to call these things generically, somebody ought to post up in the comments, because I think there'll be more of these getting made by other people. There already are, but this is the first one I've had a chance to experience, and boy is it amazing. It's worn around your neck like this. It can also be worn under your shirt collar. On this shirt it really doesn't make sense, but with a t-shirt, and I'll show you a picture of that, you can put it under the t-shirt collar and it stays very nicely in place, even if you're quite active or crawling around under a car or something like that. It can stay in place quite well. I heard the first of these. You might have seen the video when I went to RMAF and went to the airport and went to the Bose kiosk at the airport and tried it on and was amazed at how it sounds. It really is a unique listening experience like no other I've had. Kind of put your head in a cocoon of sound. Artificial sound, but surprisingly pleasurable sound. We'll get to that in a minute. It has a cover over it, which I'm going to take off in a second. These covers it comes with a black one, but they're available in white, blue, and plum. How it comes off is you take this zipper here and you open it up, and I'll take it partially off at first, like this, because when you put it back on, the way to do it is to put the end pieces in and then stretch out the headband and tuck the headband into it. And that was quite tricky. I had to look in the manual and see how they did it, and it's a little tricky to get the cover back on, but at any rate, I'll take it off so you can have a better look at the product. So this is what it looks like here. The buttons for Bluetooth and power are on this side. Volume up, down, and the multifunction button for play, pause, answer the phone, long push for Siri, all sorts of stuff that it will do. It does connect to about 2 devices. It does connect to 2 devices at a time if you want to use it. And all the pairing and everything work quite well. And the buttons are ergonomically positioned, so you just push them with your thumbs. There is a metal band through the headband here, so it's a little Gumby-like. It'll change shape. You can get it to change shape and conform to your head and neck, and it does a really good job of that. So the 2 speakers are here on either side, and they point up at your ears. But you'll notice that there's a port next to each speaker, and what there is behind this speaker there's a little chamber that encloses it and sends the sound from the back of the speaker through the neck band and out the port on this side. So it has a porting system that intends to improve the bass. I took one apart, and you'll also see the other video. I have another video of taking this apart so you can get a really good look inside. But real quickly, this is what the neck band looks like when it's taken apart, and you can see these holes in here. And here's one of the vertebrae of the neck, and you can see there's 2 holes in it for the sound, the wave guides. So you can see these tubes here where the sound goes back and forth across the back of the neck. That intends to improve the bass response, but it does a couple of other things as well. I'll give you a quick look. This is one of the end modules, and you can see the ports here, and this is one of the drivers, and you can see it's got an enclosed back and a little port there that shoots out into the neck band. So what this thing does, though, is one of the things about taking sound from the back of the speaker is that it's out of phase with the sound that's coming out of the front of the speaker. So sound is pressurized out the front and it's rarefied in the back. And when it rarefies to the front, it pressurizes to the back. So it's 180 degrees out of phase, or out of absolute polarity would be a better way to put it. And so the sound coming from the base of this speaker, going through the tube and coming out the port on this side, where's the port? Right here on this side, is out of phase. And bass on most musical pieces of music is in the same phase on both channels. It's considered kind of a mono component of the audio. So the bass would normally be out of phase when it comes out of these ports relative to the bass coming out of the speaker, and that would cause them to cancel. But Bose is really tricky, and what they did is in the DSP, there's a chip in here, and in DSP, it's a Qualcomm, the newest Qualcomm chip, and it's got a couple of DSP cores in there. In the DSP, what they do is they very trickily reverse the phase in the bass below somewhere around 300 hertz or thereabouts. The bass gets its phase reversed, which is pretty tricky all in its own. And that way, the sound from this speaker and the sound from this port are in phase with each other. But if you're following along, it also means that they're out of phase from side to side. So when you have an out of phase signal, if you take a speaker and you reverse the speaker leads on it and listen to it, when you have speakers out of phase with each other, what happens is you have no center image, and the image gets very wide to each side. It sounds very weird. It sounds all spaced out to the sides. Now, this one only has the bass reversed in the lows, but what happens is that it causes the low frequencies to sound more spacious. I suspect that if these were in phase, and you could do the bass reinforcement without the phase cancellation, if they were in phase, the bass would sound like it was coming from your throat or your neck. It wouldn't be localized very far away from you. But with the bass reversed in phase, it causes that to give this false though it may be impression of space. Yes, it's an artificial thing, but they've done it very tastefully, and so what you hear is you get a stronger impression of the bass, and the bass seems kind of big around you. The higher frequencies come from the drivers on either side. I did test this thing a number of ways. You'll have to go to the article on interfidelity. It is quite complicated. But the DSP also takes a bit of the signal from the left channel. If I feed the left channel only, I still hear some sound coming out of the right channel. And I think what Bose is doing is a bunch of stuff to cause the image to be up and around your head as opposed to being localized down at your neck. So it doesn't sound like it's coming from your neck at all. It sounds like it's coming from kind of this cocoon around your head. It's a very, very unusual experience. Now the bass extension is only to about 60, 70 hertz, maybe 60 hertz. So it doesn't extend very far, but if you have a small pair of bookshelf speakers, you'll notice that a lot of those don't have bass extension below 60 hertz as well, and you can get a nice impression of the low frequencies with that. So this is all a long rambling way to say, when I first saw these things, I expected them to sound really thin and tinny and just stupid. And when I put them on, it was like, whoa, and that's amazing. It's this cocoon of sound around your head. It's kind of expensive at $299. Does it sound as good as $299 wireless headphones? No, it actually doesn't. It's definitely kind of a mid-fi sound, and even though it's pleasant, it's also artificial and weird. Of course, headphones are artificial relative to speakers as well, so it's quite out of the ordinary, the character of the sound, but it's surprisingly pleasant. It's good in a casual sort of way. I can definitely hear this bass being out of phase, and which can be kind of odd at times. So they don't sound as good as an equivalently priced pair of headphones. They don't sound as good as a desktop system when you're sitting right next to it. But if you're cleaning around the house, not vacuuming because that's a little loud and these things don't isolate you, but if you're cleaning around the house and you need to be able to hear other people talking, it's quite convenient. You can do the dishes and people can talk and you can still hear somebody if they call your name. And no matter where you move around the house, you're always in the sweet spot. You know, I have a Sonos system and I like it. You know, it's great because I can hear music in different rooms. But there are rooms that don't have a Sonos system in it. And what if somebody else is walking around? Do they want to hear the same music as me? So these are pretty convenient sort of for walking around the house and doing stuff. I work on stuff out of my garage, and it was tucking these under a t-shirt worked great, and I can crawl around under stuff, and I was always where the music was. Normally I just listen to a speaker in my garage, and now when I go in and out of my truck and walking around or go out to check the mail or whatever it happens to be, I still can listen to the music. Or if I'm listening to talk radio, then I can keep hearing what's being said. I don't lose the continuity. Also, they're a headset, and they're a really nice headset. The microphone works great. I've had many people comment they sound great on the microphone, so that's cool. Out gardening, they would be great working in the garden. Where they wouldn't be so great is noisy environments. Like when I first heard them, it was at an airport, and it's a noisy environment, and lots of people talking and stuff, and they really didn't cut through the noise. And also, if I turned them up, other people could hear me, so I was creating some noise pollution. I wouldn't walk down Main Street in a small town, in my small town Bozeman. I wouldn't walk around on Main Street wearing these because other people could hear what I'm listening to, and they might not want to do that. I wouldn't use them if I wanted high quality listening. If I was looking for a really solid high end listening experience, these things are not going to give that to me. If I have to wear a lot of clothes, coats and things like that, it can get muffled by all the coats and stuff. So usually a headphone is better in that situation. On the other hand, if I just put a hoodie on with a zipped front and leave the zip open and put the hood up, it tends to reinforce the bass some, and I think it sounds a little bit better. If I put a winter shell up, in the same way, it tends to get a bit honky sounding because the shell isn't as permeable and doesn't let the sound through as easily, so it tends to reflect and get a little honky sounding. Likewise, laying in bed at night on my pillow, the pillow is up around it and it creates some horns, so to speak, of this geometry around the pillow, and a headphone tends to sound quite a bit better than these do on laying in bed at night. So I would say there are times when they're good and there are times when they're not so good. I would say there's times when a headphone is better, and there's times when a speaker is better, but there's times when these are better than headphones. If I'm outside in the cold and need to wear a warm hat, it's hard to get a pair of headphones that fit on top of or underneath a warm hat or hoods from coats. If I'm working in my garage and have to run a saw, I got to put earmuffs on, so I'd have to take the headphones off and put the earmuffs on. These, they can just stay on while I put the protection earmuffs on, cut the wood, take it off, and I'm still playing music and ready to go. So it's really kind of a product that in its use case and ergonomics fits in between some areas that aren't particularly well served by speakers or headphones, and in that way I think it's in a category all its own, although there's now a few other devices like this, neck-worn speakers like this, and I am going to pursue having a listen to them. I tend to think that Bose has pretty much nailed it with this thing and done a whole lot of magic and a whole lot of trickery, and then managed to have the good taste to put it all back together again in such a way where the sum of it is overcomes the difficulties, and it turns into a pleasurable listening experience. So I have my doubts that anybody's going to be able to best them very easily anyway, with this type of product. Not only were they technologically pretty adept, but they've got some pretty good patents, like they do with noise canceling headphones. They're going to prevent people from using these sound tubes and reversing the phase to give a more intense bass experience with this small of a device. So being in a category of 1 and being easily over the line into something that's pleasurable and enjoyable and convenient and useful, it's going to go up on the wall of fame. It's really a cool product. I'm pretty sure it's not for everybody. You know, people will not necessarily have the need for it if you live in a small space or live with other roommates. And I don't know. There's all sorts of reasons why speakers or headphones would be a better choice. But there will certainly be times when this would be convenient, and for some people where, for example, myself, I work around the house. I work at home, and I work out in my garage, and so I spend a lot of time just puttering around the house, and these are very, very convenient for that. So I don't think it's necessarily for everybody, but for some people, it's a great product. Really, nothing like it, and it fills some gaps that can't otherwise be filled. So I really think that it's worth your while to go find one of these somewhere and have a listen, at a Bose store or at a Bose counter in some big box electronics store, because I think you'll be really surprised at how good they sound. Not that they sound great, but that they sound way better than something this small ought to, and way different than anything you've ever heard before. A very unusual listening experience. If for no other reason, it's worth having a listen to one of these things just to have this very unusual, very different listening experience. So, hope you get to hear one soon. It's well worth the effort to do so. And we'll see you guys next time.